Good morning, folks. This is your friendly host of uh, Ad-hoc daily rantings, Ad-hoc rantings. My welcome to my internet show of Ad-hoc rantings. So there are a few good points in the already produced videos, but today I'm going to take you on a little ride of analysis toward China and Russia and Iran, right? But focusing on China helping Putin's as well as the West. So if you look at it this way, the West in general, when the Soviet Union was destroyed in Afghanistan, uh, uh, and the West in general was basically directed by the Israeli entity to help assist bring back communism or the post-Stalinians up. And the West in general, whether it's Western Europe or North America, are almost entirely responsible for raising back that entity, that cabal that lives in Moscow and rules the country. And it's part of that financial and political and ideological octopus that is run by Israel, of course. One of which is China and Iran. China in particular, the very existence of China was basically started from somewhere in San Francisco. Actually, they made a movie, almost semi documentary, quasi documentary movie. It's called 1911. Is when the Israeli tripod, that leg which is in China, was beginning to shape up and destroy the old, China and bring up a new subservient China that is basically a surrogate of Israel. And so is Iran. We know that story very well. But now the question goes like this: when Russia is a European nation, and they are supposedly, if you're talking about Moscow, if you're talking about St. Petersburg, or anywhere else, at least Russia is very, very much focused in the West, really, close to Europe. Anything else is really far-flung and sprawling somewhere in the Central Asian republics, or Kyrgyzstan or Tatarstan, and so on and so. All these are Muslim, Turkic Muslim republics, Tatar and Muslim, and Siberia, obviously, it's pretty empty, except some, like Muslims occupied in the south and so on. And up north, it's occupied by some Eskimo or Inuit and so on. But Russia mainly is really Moscow and a little bit west of it toward the borders of Europe, if you will. So it's a European nation in a way. I had been way back in the 90s. I was talking to people from Serbia, and I mentioned to them that Russians are pretty much like you. That was, I would say, in the 90s. Russians are pretty much the same people as you in Serbia. And there was a rejection from the Serb who were Orthodox, really, that possibly, yes, partially, but really the Russians have some Mongol Tatar origin as well. It's that simple. I'm not being racist here. I think Russian folks are as much people as I am or anybody else. But what lives among them is evil and basically stirs in them and instills in them hatred and killing and murder ever since communism really came about. Prior to that, they had some bad stuff like Ivan the Terrible and so on. But no, at the end of the day, every nation is guilty of something, and they were as well. But really, when communism came about, communism in particular, is a sister of. I repeated that. I'm going to repeat that. I said this before. Communism is a sister of Nazism and they both evolved, and not spontaneously or naturally, but grew out of the same roots, and they have links, and they have relationships, and they nourish from the same place, and internally they are governed by the same dogma and same entity, really. Even though they appear to, fight each other and the world and so on, but the internal core of it, the Shrek approach, if you if you will, the onion of Shrek, on the inside, really, it's the same one and the same. They basically were created and run by the same entity and the same, that entity, whatever you want to call it. I call it Israel, right? Fact of the matter is, Iran's revolution is the same. Shiites are the same. Shiism is a movement similar to communism and similar to Nazism. Chinese regime is really pretty much the same. But now back to our point here. If Russia basically shed its communism past, supposedly, right? Why are they fighting the West, right? Aren't they a nation that is Western, that is European, that is Christian, that has same values, same... I mean, if you look at it, you would see that they're protecting the Iran's regime, the Syrian regime, cohorting with Chinese regime. Really, there's real alliance between them and the Chinese and the Iranians and so on. That's a foregone conclusion. The analysis of this has been completed, and those of you who know the facts of history and who know history know that that is true, that Iran's regime, Russia's regime, and China's regime, with many satellites like Hezbollah, ISIS, Qaeda, and Syrian regime, and General Sisi of Egypt, and King Abdullah of Jordan, and the Gulf countries and so on, they're really smaller tentacles, like smaller hairs sticking out from, from those legs of the tripod, or the octopus for that matter. This is not a conspiracy, folks. This is not a conspiracy theory. No, not at all. This is reality, folks, and that's what's going on. But then you wonder, what would cause such behavior? Like the Soviet Union, if, for example, Afghanistan destroyed the communism, right? Destroyed communism, like the main bastion of communism, which is really Russia. And by the way, the Castros are brothers of the Hitlers and the Stalins and the Ayatollahs and the Xi Jinping, and they're all brothers, of course, of their supposed symbolic leader, or probably real leader, who's Netanyahu's, or I call him Netanyahu's. So anyways, I wonder, why do they take up this position? They project this fundamental and real position of antagonism toward the West, right? And take up arms against it and try to undermine it and so on and so forth. What is it? I mean, didn't the Russian people celebrate the failure of communism? And they were happy to join back into the European community and the world for that matter, and so on and so forth, right? Just think about it this way. There is that establishment among them and that cabal among them that Russians do not know about. That cabal looks like, in Germany, it looks like German. In America, it looks like American. In England, it looks like English. In Russia, it looks like Russians. In Arabia, it looks like Arabs. And in Iran, it looks like Iranians. And China looks like Chinese. I don't know, man. That's a journey of a soul that is really tormented and corrupted and so on. The souls of those who are moving about and so on. That's torment, folks. I wouldn't want that on myself, believe me, and it seems to me like while wealth and rule and so on has been achieved, the genetics and the personality and the family and whatever constitutes happiness for a human is lost. I'm talking about the Stalinese and Hitler and Xi Jinping and the Castros and the Gulf countries and so on. That is not to be dismissed. What I just said is not to be dismissed easily. Believe me. Look at it again. And only when you know of a certain state of mind if you feel it or probably closely observe it, is when you know what it is and you know your own situation, because now your unconscious, or what we call in Arabic ruh, or spirit, begins the analysis and comparison. We're always doing that. I said in previous video that we are a black hole of information, of senses, of emotions, and so on. As much as we emanate, as much as we absorb, we actually absorb far more than we emanate. That we don't sense, that we don't realize, and then our unconscious, not the unconscious really, or the ruh or spirit that Arabs defined, but it is a constant rebuilding, constant redefinition, constant corrections, and so on and so forth. And that, don't look for that in the mind, in the brain. Anyways, some people may say, oh, the ruh or spirit was defined by Judaism before Islam. That's not true, folks. Judaism has taken a lot from Islam as it reshaped itself after Islam, namely citing Musa ibn Maymun or Maimonide, adapting something called tahara from Islam, or purification of the body, or during prayers and so on, and washing of the dead and so on and so forth. Plus the prayers, prostrations and so on, all that is taken from Islam. You may cite some flimsy evidence, but your books have certainly been recompiled and readjusted after the appearance of Islam. But that's not the subject. The subject is now, let's go to China. Chinese regime is one horrific mother of a regime. What am I saying here? With all supposedly the communism that they had, and they lost, right? Shed, some at one point they shed slowly because they had to survive. They knew they would face the fate of the Soviet Union eventually if they did not adapt and change and so on and so forth. But they didn't adapt much really. The Chinese man now is more, as much as I said about us ingesting, about me and my likes and so on, ingesting knowledge and information and feelings and notions, and there, that is a whole spectrum, a big gigantic spectrum of things that our spirit ingest and emanate as well. The Chinese man ingests money basically, and food, and wealth, and alcoholic works, and so on and so forth. So communism, or let's say that tripod, that leg in China, which was started, the establishment in 1911, officially speaking, they were there before that, basically changed the Chinese man into a dog pig consumption animal, right? And of course, the shedding of communism did not prevent them from running concentration camps for Muslims, because they inherited that from Israel. Israelis have deep-rooted aversion to Islam's and Arab in particular, and their lives and thoughts focus, about 99% of their lives and thoughts from whenever they go until they're adult, until they pass away, from over millennia ago, is really centered around how to destroy and torment and fight against Islam and try to remove it and then destroy everything else. That 1% is really to make the rest of the humanity as goyims, right? Meaning the token animals. But then China has become what I termed way before as the world factory, right? I don't know who thought that out. First, I want to thank you for doing so, because you weakened yourself or yourselves, right? By doing something like this. You never resort to such dramatic decisions and actions, because eventually they will come back and disrupt the normal flow of humanity and its structure and its survivalism, right? But I don't want to thank you. Well, that also undermines your authority. But I don't want to thank you, because that is hurting a lot of people and destroying people and so on and so forth, making misery on earth, let's say. But that's to your pleasure. I noticed that you guys enjoy seeing other people suffer and like suffering emotionally and financially and spiritually and tragedies and so on. And it's like you're not, it's like people enjoying, some people enjoy cracking sunflower seeds or eating like stuff all the time with relish, right? Or smoke with relish. That's it to you, right? Uh, but then China has become all that it has become, whatever superficial it is because of the West, because of America. Ever since Israel decapitated the US by killing JFK and RFK, and all the presidents afterwards are Jewish. The only one I'm not aware of is really Bill Clinton, or I'm not sure about, really. Let's put it this way. He exhibits the predilection or disposition of a European man, right? Northwestern European. Yet his action falls in line with his wife, let's put it this way, who is really whose name is probably Hadassah, right? Now, anyway, that's it. China is like, I called it before, the 2,000-pound leech or parasite or a slug stuck on the 200 pounds human. And back to JFK. After JFK, starting with Nixon, of course, Nixon started the process of gutting and transferring the United States to China. Everything, right? As if, one house was emptied and another was filled, right? Like the net sum of one family was completely gutted, taken out, their wealth, their weapons, their manufacturing, their business, everything was taken and given to the other family. But now, if I was Chinese, I wouldn't accept that, of course, because if you have to be successful, you have to grow yourself, really. You can't be given things and become successful. I mean, you can, it helps, but eventually it's within that makes you who you are, not without. Without is important, but the 99% of who you are is really from within, who you are. Good or evil or good, right? Successful or not, parasite or true human being, whatever, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? But then why would China be also similar to Russia, similar to Iran? Why would China be so antagonist toward the US and try to undermine US on every turn, like in Africa and in the Middle East and here and there? It's just mind-boggling, because US and Western Europe happen to be the biggest market of China. If these markets are closed down or stopped, whatever China sells elsewhere is really minuscule considered to what they sell, or the size of magnitude of commodities that they export to the US and Western Europe. And, really US is really substantial, and that's like the substantial or largest part of their economy on there. So as to why they always do that, like they keep this relationship where they're still gutting the United States, taking its job, taking its middle class, not taking its middle class, but replacing its middle class, stealing its jobs, taking its money, taking everything that the United States is, and yet they show hatred and deep-rooted hatred toward the United States. It's that weasel personality that they and the post-Stalinians have within, it's within. They cannot help it. They have this weasel, weasel personality. But then come to about Iran. Iran at the same situation was actually, the revolution was helped a great deal by the CIA. We know that. We have evidence toward it. And we know Israel is really behind the scene doing all that it did. And now Iran also keeps talking about the big Satan and so on, about the United States and so on. It's weird, man. Like these guys are stealing, robbing the victim, yet they hate the victim. I mean, why do you want to hate the victim when you're like victimizing somebody? It's just, it's a contradiction of the soul. It's a contradiction of, it's a conflict. They're conflicted. their teachings, whether they're the regimen and polity or establishment in Iran and in China, in Russia and elsewhere, of course, they're conflicted, and the teaching comes from Israel. That's how they learn. You steal someone's money and you begin to hate them. I mean, I mean, just worry about the money, right? And leave. But no. It's that personality I was able to peer into and have an introspection into across the years. Here and there, it's mind-boggling. How capable they are of dysfunction and destruction and hating and maiming and manipulating, and it's just mind-boggling. I mean, I am a human being. No matter how bad I sometimes think of it myself, I can never go that far in becoming so dysfunctional and so destructive and so hateful, and it's just mind-boggling. And that brings us back to our original point: is that's not health, folks. You think you're living healthy because you have a security in your job, you have security in your bank account, in your investment, which you really don't own. It's being stolen by your brother Trump and Obama and Bush and whoever it is and given to you for free, right? And you think that's good, right? No, it's not good, folks. No, that's not good. You don't know how I have seen you, even you rich folks. You're not happy. And it does appear from what I'm reading, you haven't been happy for thousands of years. And it does appear to me that if you're still on the earth, that you will not be happy forever. And you will be traveling and you will be changing races, and so on and so forth. It's mind-boggling. I'm kidding you. I'm not kidding you. So now that's it. Let's talk about back now. Let's talk about Russia attacking Ukraine. This is part of a big conspiracy, folks. It's a comprehensive plan of change of governments and change of rule and so on. And utopia, that negative utopia, is being worked out right now. But hey, they faltered. That's the soldier you raised in human being you raised in Russia for the past century, and that's the soldier you get. And if China came into Ukraine, they would have suffered the same fate. They are no longer ability to fight, and it seems to me like some of those soldiers are now hoisting the communist flag. So as you can see, what's coming toward Europe is not really good. Is the European life perfect? No, it's anything but perfect. Like the family and the drugs and whatnot. And their disconnection from ethics and family and so on, and all that achieved after World War II. Really, it was accelerating. It started in World War I and even prior to that, but then it started accelerating. Now it's almost, those Europeans are almost indistinguishable from what they used to be like a century ago. There is a sister movement also of communism, of Muslim Brotherhood, of Iran's regime, of Chinese regime, of Castro's, of United States Johnson, Kamas, and whoever after him, and so on. And that is really the Mongol movement before that, and before them the Shiites movement. These are deadly, folks, and they faltered. And what's going on now will also falter. But they're on, they have so many chances in destroying the world that they keep repeating that every now and then. Like, for example, in the last century, hundreds of millions perished under their hatred and under their wars that they light up the fires of, or engineer from behind the scene and pit people against each other, and so on and so forth. And now they're hoisting, those Russians hoisting some of them at least hoisting the communist flag. I think it's Chinese flag or even Soviet flag, and they're moving their tanks toward Ukraine. And from that, Europeans should surmise that the plan was not just Ukraine, it was all Europe. Now, let me tell you about Ukraine. Ukraine is not going to happen for Putins or Pustalinins, or Israel for that matter. Even though they have role in it, but they don't spread or strike roots in all society. They cannot control the military or the fighting individual, and so on and so forth. So there's no chance of them, and we know that by now. However, the chance of them taking over Ukraine is currently non-existent. It's a figment of their imagination. However, if there is a very minuscule chance that Putin, Stalinin, and his, the dog and his dogs and so on go through Ukraine, okay, let's give that a hypothetical chance, right? And they want to go all the way to the Atlantic, right? Eventually, year after year, decade after decade, or whatever it is. If that happens, and that's not going to happen, every 1 inch will be contested. Every 1 inch. So you can imagine what you've gotten yourself into, folks. The biggest surprise for you turned out to be that the Ukrainian citizen, along with the European citizen, are willing to fight tooth and nail. And you, now that you're flabbergasted, you're shocked, because you thought these are now so corrupted, those European citizens, so corrupted in their lifestyle that they just don't want to fight anymore. You have it the other way around. It is your Russian and your Chinese and your Alawite and your Shiites. That's why in Syria and Chechnya and Afghanistan and here and there, you resorted at the end, after you were defeated conventionally, you resorted to murdering mass civilians. You guys don't understand. Sometimes we are unable to sense the misery. Sometimes people are unable to sense the misery of their spirits. The spirits, there's a place within that nobody can touch, right? How do I liken it? I liken it to like the kernel space in Unix, right? Every process has a part of it that is controlled by the kernel. The process itself cannot control. The kernel controls, and there's something within us that is so beyond our control, and never ever will we able, even spiritually, will be able to go into. That place begins to diminish and shrink and shrivel and covers itself, similar to, if you will, similar to a pearl, like being, produced by a clamp, like trying to cover a grain of sand or whatnot, right? That's something like that. And you guys are of such. Now you become so materialistic that you don't know anything else, right? And it seems to me like whenever there is some killing going on somewhere, like being achieved, you start laughing and hideous laughs and gloating and so on, and like shrieking and then celebrating. But that's what you've become, really. So that's the USA and Iran and all of those. It's not going well, folks, and I knew that. I don't need to do much analysis for you. The fundamentals of your advance this century and the last century. This movement, modern movement, started by that devil Theodor Herzl. That's what Erdogan meant when he said that he and meaning his Jews, right, been waiting to fight this war for 2 or 3 centuries by now. Okay, well, what's going on? So that's what you've been doing. Mongols, communism, Shiaism, and Protestantism too, but Protestantism was not exactly successful. While you were able to change the dogma, you didn't change you couldn't pull the human out of Europeans, like completely yank it out. And that's why World War I and World War II, you committed those two. You may say, you're giving us more credit than we deserve, right? Now it goes like this. Everything that happens in the world that is bad, that maims, that kills, that murders, that destroys, that pollutes, that steals, that makes people poor, that is pandemic, all yours. You, the instigator, you're the cause. For the others, I want you to wake up. Americans, Europeans, Arabs, you name it, all those Sunnis, I'm talking to Sunnis, wherever they are. Protestants, Catholics, Americans, Europeans, Arabs, Indians, whoever you are. Now is the time to support Ukraine, folks. Not that Russia is going to succeed, but if there's a time that, if there is that very small, minuscule chance that may come about, hypothetically may come about, and it may, you never know, right? Your lives will be changed forever. You will see a lot of bloodshed to reduce population in India, possibly China, because that's too much for them. You know, they don't want to spend on those people. Not that they're spending their own money; it's the money they stole. But they, of course, they consider them theirs, and they don't want to steal it. And when they steal this money and count it, they start bobbing their heads like Moses the crow and start crowing, you know, and very loudly and look around. All right. Uh, so this today's show, I know it's not popular, but guess what? Truth was never popular, except under the righteous. And the righteous at 1450 years ago uh, basically prevailed, and the truth was celebrating everything that that could be celebrated. But eventually it decayed, and then it was eaten from within. And now we're back to prior to that, the establishment of brilliant Animal Farm, you know, Major and his friends and so on, those real great men, right, called Muhammad and his companions and so on. They established this this world of learning, of books, of science, of civility, of love for humanity and nature, of love of learning, of everything that a man could think of that will make life very good. So I'm proud to be part of that Sunni animal farm that was established 400 years ago. And Rabbi Eric Arthur Blair can hate me and hate my kind all he wants. All I saw, all I read in that novel is sick thoughts that could make a substitute for the Talmud, basically. Have a nice day, my friends, and we'll talk to you later. Bye now. Go help Ukraine with whatever you can.